That's insane, incredible, knowing how many artists performed there, how many athletes played there, like big names, and just be in line with those people, it's incredible.
There's a moment in every athlete's story where the noise gets louder than the game itself, and right now, that moment belongs to a 20-year-old from the Philippines who walked out of Spain before the tournament even started and somehow made the entire tennis.
To see the welcome that I've had, there's a huge Filipino community here, so I'm so excited they've come out.
World stop scrolling. Alex is world number 45. She's young, she's electric, and she just lost back-to-back matches on clay. None of that should be headline news. But here we are. Because the story of how she got to Madrid, what she said, who she said it about, and why Aryna Sabalenka hasn't responded with a single word, that story is far more layered than any scoreline can capture. So let's go back to the beginning of this clay swing and actually understand what's happening, because the surface-level narrative is missing the real thing entirely. 6 weeks ago, Alex was sitting at world number 29. Let that land for a second. Number 29 in the world, at 20 years old, after a Miami Open run that had people genuinely reconsidering her ceiling. She reached the quarterfinals there, and more importantly, she beat Sabalenka along the way, the same Sabalenka who owns a sunshine double this season, the same Sabalenka who has won Madrid 3 times and walked into the draw as the undisputed favorite. Alex beat her. Not in a lucky match, not in a fluke, but in a clean, composed, genuinely dominant performance that left Sabalenka without answers. And then Alex said something that traveled further than the result itself. She told Tennis Express that if she could steal any shot from any player on the tour, it would be Sabalenka's serve. Not her forehand, not her mentality, her serve specifically. That quote went everywhere. Fans replayed it, analysts discussed it, and Sabalenka, the woman the comment was directed at, said absolutely nothing. Not in a press conference, not in a casual interview, not even a passing social media mention. Complete silence. And somehow that silence became its own kind of statement, loud in the way that only deliberate quiet can be. But before we get to Madrid and what's waiting there, you need to understand how the wheels started coming off, because the drop from 29 to 45 in 6 weeks tells a story that the highlights packages aren't bothering to tell. Miami closed, the hard court points dried up, and the ranking math immediately turned brutal. In 2025, Alex reached the Miami semifinals and collected 390 points for it. This year, her quarterfinal exit handed her back something considerably smaller, and the deficit between those two results, 270 points just gone from her total the moment the draw closed, didn't come from a bad match or an unlucky draw. It came from a spreadsheet. That's the part that stings differently. You can process a tough loss on court. You can watch the tape, find the patterns, and work on the details. But losing points because last year's you did better in the same tournament? That's a different kind of pressure, and it followed her straight into the clay season. She arrived in Linz needing results. Not performances, not moral victories, actual wins that put numbers back on the board. And early on, she looked like she might get them. She handled Julia Grabher in the round of 32 without drama, 6-4, 6-3, nothing spectacular but clean and controlled, exactly what you want from someone trying to find rhythm on a new surface. Then Ostapenko walked onto the court in the round of 16, and what happened next still doesn't quite make logical sense. Alex led the first set 4-2. She was dictating, she was comfortable, and she was playing against a former French Open champion who strikes the ball harder than almost anyone alive on red dirt. Ostapenko had to fight. She won 4 straight games to take the set 6-4, and even that sequence felt like a warning more than a verdict. Because the second set belonged to Alex completely. She broke immediately, then again, and she was up 4-0 before most people had finished their coffee. The match was hers to close. All she needed was one more game, one game to force a third set against a player who was visibly rattled, who had complained to the umpire, who had completely lost the thread of the match. One game. She never got there. Ostapenko, somehow, someway, flipped an invisible switch and won 6 consecutive games. The match ended right there in the second set, 7-5, no third, no comeback, just a slow-motion collapse from a position of total control. Alex left Austria with 60 ranking points and a loss that stings not because she was outplayed but because she was one moment away from turning the whole thing around and couldn't get it done. 1 week later, Stuttgart. Different city, same surface, and an opponent who made the storyline almost too neat to believe. Leylah Fernandez, ranked 25 in the world, left-handed like Alex and carrying Filipino heritage through her mother's side, was facing Alex for the very first time in a singles match. The tennis world had already written the narrative before a single ball was struck. What actually happened was far less poetic. Fernandez won 20 of the first 26 points. She targeted Alex's backhand from the jump, stepped inside the baseline on return games, and broke serve twice before Alex had even found the pace of the match. The first set was over in under 30 minutes, 6-1. The second had more life in it. Alex held more comfortably, pushed back, got it to 4-5, and even had a 30-0 lead on Fernandez's serve in the final game, 1 point from forcing a tiebreak. Fernandez won 4 straight points. That was that. 1 hour and 28 minutes total, and across both sets Alex won 46 points out of 109. 42%. Against the 25th player in the world. On clay. And that number is the one that matters, because 42% isn't a close loss where momentum broke the wrong way. That's a surface problem, and it has been a surface problem for a while. Since the 2024 French Open qualifying, where she reached the third round, Alex has not won more than 1 match in any clay court tournament. Nearly 2 full years. Everything that made people excited about her, the Miami run, the Indian Wells deep draw, the Auckland semifinal, and the Dubai quarterfinal, all of it happened on hard courts. The clay version of Alex and the hard court version are playing almost entirely different sports, and that gap hasn't closed the way her ranking suggested it might have. Which is exactly why what she said about Sabalenka's serve reads so differently now than it did before Stuttgart and Linz. Back in Miami, that quote sounded like a young star paying tribute to the best server in the game. After 2 clay losses in quick succession, it sounds like something else entirely. It sounds like a player who knows precisely what she's missing and knows precisely what it costs her on this surface. Sabalenka ranks 2nd on the WTA in percentage of serve points won. 3rd in break points saved, 6th in aces. Her delivery doesn't just produce free points, it removes the pressure from everything else in her game. Opponents can't return aggressively enough to disrupt her, and that means she never has to bail herself out of grinding baseline exchanges on clay the way players with weaker serves do. When Alex's first serve percentage dips and her second serve sits up in the court, clay court opponents step forward and punish it. Fernandez did it in Stuttgart. Ostapenko did it in Linz. Neither of them did anything exceptional. They just stood back and took what Alex gave them, and on clay, that's enough. So when that clip of Alex saying she'd steal Sabalenka's serve circulated after those 2 results, the reaction shifted. People who'd nodded along before were now reading between the lines, hearing a player identify the exact distance between.
Absolutely, and that there's a certain stepladder that you have to go through before you get to elite sport. So it starts really in high school.
Between where she is and where she needs to be to compete on this surface at the highest level. And the woman the comment was about still hasn't said a word. That silence has genuine weight to it. Whether it's deliberate strategy, genuine indifference, or something else entirely doesn't really matter in the end. The effect is the same. The quote is everywhere, the response is nowhere, and now both of them are heading to the Caja Magica in Madrid for a tournament that was already going to be must-watch tennis regardless. Sabalenka arrives as a machine in full flow. She won Indian Wells and Miami this season, becoming just the 5th woman in history to complete the Sunshine Double in a single calendar year, and she did it without dropping the kind of sets that would suggest any vulnerability. She skipped Stuttgart. She hasn't played a competitive match since the Miami final. She walks into Madrid as defending champion, top seed, world number 1, and one of the most terrifying competitors on clay alive. 3 Madrid titles. She owns this court. Alex arrives carrying 2 straight losses, no seeding, no ranking protection, and a first-round berth in the round of 128. She needs 5 wins just to reach the quarterfinals. 5 wins against a draw that includes 9 of the world's top 10 confirmed entries: Sabalenka, Rybakina, Gaff, Swiatek, Pegula, Anisimova, Svitolina, Paulini, Andreeva, and wild cards that include Venus Williams and Paula Badosa on her home soil. There is no soft section of this draw, no gentle warm-up rounds, no spot where the bracket opens up and hands you a free path. Every round from the first is a fight. And yet, here is the thing about Alex in Madrid specifically. She has history here that actually matters. Last year she came in as a wild card ranked 72 and beat Victoria Tomova without breaking a sweat, then pushed Iga Swiatek, then the defending champion and world number 2, to 3 full sets in the round of 64. She took the first set against Swiatek on clay in Madrid. Against Swiatek. That is not a footnote, that is proof that when something clicks for Alex in this city, on this clay, it clicks in a way that makes even the very best players on the planet uncomfortable. The problem right now is the gap between that version of Alex and the version that dropped the second set from 4-0 up against Ostapenko, the version that won 42% of the points in Stuttgart. The floor has been sinking while the ceiling stayed where it was, and Madrid is going to answer very quickly and very brutally which one shows up. The ranking situation makes the urgency real in a way that goes beyond just wanting a good result. A quarterfinal run from the round of 128 at a WTA 1000 earns 215 points. A semifinal gets her 390. A final appearance brings 650. To claw back into the top 30 before the French Open, she needs at minimum to reach the quarters, and she needs to do it against 9 of the top 10 seeds somewhere in the brackets above her. That is the mountain she got on a plane to Spain to climb. 20 years old, dropped 16 ranking spots in 6 weeks, no seeding, no protection, the Filipino community already packing into the stands at the Kaja Magica to watch her, and somewhere across the practice courts, Aryna Sabalenka is warming up and has still not said a single word about any of it. That silence is not neutral. It never was. It is pressure disguised as indifference, and Alex is walking straight into it when the main draw opens. Every fan who watched Miami this year knows what Alex can do when everything connects. The talent is not in question. The results from the last 2 weeks are not her ceiling, they are not even close to it. What they are is a genuine problem that Madrid is going to force her to solve in the most public, most high-stakes, most unforgiving environment possible. The clay is the same clay that gave Ostapenko and Fernandez free points off her second serve. The draw is the same draw that sent last year's wild card version of her to 3 sets against Swiatek. The difference is what happens between those two realities, and the answer to that question is the entire story of this tournament for anyone who cares about watching a 20-year-old figure out in real time whether she belongs at the top of this sport. Madrid 2026 starts April 21st, and the round of 128 is where Alex begins. The only thing left to find out is whether she's walking in to survive or walking in to finish what Miami started.